Hey everyone, I hope you're okay today. The video that I want to record today, I've just done 5 minutes worth, but I ended up getting really angry and shouting and swearing, and that's not much good. So, let's start again. Now, the BBC on Tuesday night, they recorded live from a mortuary. Just think about that. We know what their angle is with COVID-19. Their angle is, this is a threat to our very existence, to all of our existences. This is an existential threat. This is a horrific disease that you should be scared of, and that you should be terrified of, that you should be petrified of. And that's their angle. And that's what they've focused on for 11 months now. There's never any context. There's never any balance. It's just propaganda from a place intended to instill mass fear, and they've succeeded. Now think about what went on in the newsroom in the BBC when they decided on that recording from a mortuary on Tuesday night. Just imagine them all sat around there. Oh, what shall we do? We know they're scared. What can we do to ratchet up that fear that bit more? Tell you what we'll do. Let's record live from a mortuary, a place of death. Yeah, let's do that. The sick fucks. The sick bastards. How do they live with themselves? How do these people live with themselves on their 300, 400, 500,000 pound salaries? Here's the problem at the BBC with their reporting of COVID-19. They don't ever add any nuance, any balance, any context, any explanation, any alternative angles whatsoever. And you would have to be either completely 100% taken in by their propaganda or thick not to see it. And unfortunately, there are people in both of those camps. This explains the mess that we're in. So what are the other angles that they could have, or that they could choose to include in their news coverage of COVID-19? Well, they could choose to refer consistently to the fact that around 20,000 of those COVID-19 deaths were unnecessary. They occurred at the start of the pandemic because of old people being sent to care homes without a negative test, i.e. the very people who were and are vulnerable to this disease weren't protected by our beloved NHS, by our faultless NHS that is deified by our mainstream media, that actually has blood on its hands. They could choose to compare. They could choose to compare the number of people that have died from, or should I say, with COVID-19 to the UK population, which is 65.5 million. And they would then find that that percentage of people that's died, the percentage, not the number, the percentage is minuscule. They could choose to compare deaths from infectious disease this January or last December to previous Januaries and Decembers of years gone by. They could choose to refer to statistics from the Office of National Statistics regarding overall mortality for 2020, in which case they would see that there is little to no evidence of a pandemic. They could choose to focus on the number of people who've died of other conditions and whether they are higher or lower due to the measures introduced by the government. Do they do any of that? No, they don't. No, they don't. Of course they don't, because it doesn't fit their narrative. And what is their evil, malevolent, disgusting, depraved narrative? It is one of death and destruction and fear. The sick bastards. Words cannot describe the contempt, the disdain, the hatred that I have for the BBC. That's not even getting onto It's race baiting, divisive rhetoric with everything else that it puts out there. Also on Tuesday night, headline, Sky News making a headline out of this. Don't hug your kids. Right, just take a second to process that. Don't hug your kids. It was somebody being interviewed on Radio 4. Radio 4, Janet Lord, director of Birmingham University's Institute of Inflammation and Ageing. I would certainly against hugging your kids. Not to do that at the moment. And she goes on to say, it's important that people stay on their guard even if they've had their first vaccination, and that even when they've had their vaccination, don't hug their kids. Speechless. I don't know what the override. I think the overriding emotion for me is upset. I think if I had to pick one word, it's upsetting. When I think the sinister turn this propaganda's taken. Don't hug your kids. And this terrifying thing for me is that I know for a fact there's grandparents who still haven't seen the grandkids for 11 months now. Well, it's 10 months since last March. That's the impact of propaganda. That's what it can do. It can convince people not to see their own grandkids. And there are some people who are so fully consumed by this indoctrination and this brainwashing that they will take notice of that and they won't hug their kids. What kind of sick bastards are there who are making these decisions? And here's the point. Here's the point that not enough people realise. That if you're not on guard as a society against threats to democracy, loss of freedom and loss of free speech, all the things I talk about, you will end up with sick psychopaths making decisions for society with unhealthy amounts of power, spewing out propaganda like that at any other time, if people weren't so scared, they would be disgusted by, they would be horrified by. But so many people now are so taken in by the propaganda and they're so terrified that they can't see. They're not noticing what's going on in their world. Only some, because a lot are. A lot of people are. And for those people that are the ones who've got the ability a pretty basic ability to be able to filter a debate through any other lens than the media. And there are many different lenses to filter any debate through, and it's important. It's important that any debate is filtered through a number of different lenses to approach an important discussion from a number of different angles and viewpoints in order to promote a healthiness around that debate, in order to make sure that debate is informed. And most importantly, to ensure that any policies that are then created and implemented are as a result of robust discourse, democratic input, and one where the citizens themselves have had an opportunity to contribute. But there is only a very thin slice of people at the moment who are commenting on this. And at what point? I wake up every day, right? Every single day I wake up and then I'll go to bed and I'll think, I wonder when people will start speaking up. I wonder when people who work in maybe in the NHS, in the media, schools. When will the teachers start speaking up for the children? When will people who work in the NHS come out and say, what you're being told isn't the full story? When will journalists start acting like journalists and be curious and ask questions from a different viewpoint and challenge government? When will they start doing that? And mostly, when will the general public show that they've got a moral backbone? When will people become upset and angry about everything they've lost? You know, I miss seeing people, seeing friends. I miss, living my life and just doing ordinary things without the threat of breaking the law. I miss going to a football match. I miss going to the pub. I miss standing at the bar. I miss going around to see wider family. I miss living in a world where I feel like I've got a say, the democratic say. I miss living in a world where I don't see moral depravity all around me. Yeah, it's upsetting. It is. It's upsetting. I think the thing that upsets me is the fact that people are still turning a blind eye. In many ways, they're no better than the people who are making these decisions. They're complicit. They're complicit. And as each day that goes by, it's going to become harder and harder and harder to get out of this mess. Anyone who's out there who can see this propaganda, this vile propaganda, and see it for what it is, the fact that it is evil and destructive, malign, and can see how it's manipulated society, how it's turned us into a health tyranny, I won't say anything. It's easy to join the crowd. Especially easy if you've got a full-time job, regular income coming in, pension. It's easy, isn't it? Turn a blind eye. It's okay, I'm okay, I'm safe in my four walls, my family's okay. Well, other families aren't okay. And what if your family wasn't okay? What if you just lost your job? What a sick society that we live in. What a sick society. When are people going to realise freedom doesn't come for free? When are they going to grow a pair? When are they going to show just an ounce? That's all that's required, just an ounce of the courage and the moral fortitude that the wartime generation had. All people have to do is be willing to engage in a conversation. That's it. All people have to do is say no. Yeah, that's it. You might have to take a sacrifice, but that's all you've got to do. So do it. I'm going to go. See you later.